Hello everyone, good morning. Okay, hope you can hear me. All right, so let us proceed with today's class. If you remember, we are discussing about the various organizational structures. Just to revise your memory, we talked about functional organization, product organization, then matrix organization, modified matrix, then pure project organization, then departmental project organization. Okay. So these are the varieties of organizational structures that can happen. And also at the end of studies class, we discussed what are the various factors which are taken into account while deciding a particular organizational structure. It can have a factor like technology, the size, the what else, culture, and your location, business strategy, company size, and the stage of development. So these are some factors based on which a company can select a proper organizational structure. Now, to begin with today's class, there is some very crude guideline to select a particular organization, and it is in the context of project organization structure. Project, here the project means suppose you are going to handle a project, right? Depending on the type of the project or the nature of the project, which kind of organizational structure will be suitable. So as I said, it is just a kind of rough guideline. It may not be, you have to take in its, you have to take in the right spirit of it. It is not that it is the exact guideline that you have to follow, because companies may have their own priorities and strategies to decide their organizational structure. But still, these are very, I mean, simple guidelines which can be helpful to decide a kind of organizational structure. So the first guideline is regarding the matrix form, right? As I told you, most of the companies which are having presence in various locations or project-oriented companies, like you can see here, L&T and Macon are cited. So in those situations, they will prefer the matrix kind of organization, because as you know, in matrix, what happens? They divide their workforce among various physical locations, or maybe projects, or maybe some kind of diversified business or products. If some project is getting completed, then the workforce is coming back to its original position or parent organization. Then they will wait for the next project to be deputed. So that is very convenient for that kind of organization to handle with matrix organization, right? Okay, modified matrix is nothing new. It is the same matrix, but just to reduce the burden on the chief, you are having another post created for taking care of the divisions or the projects. That is modified matrix. Otherwise, it is a matrix basically. So for project-driven enterprises, so these are called project-driven enterprises. Maybe many IT companies are also project-driven enterprises. Say, talk about TCS or Infosys or any other Wipro kind of. So they are also project-driven enterprises. At a particular time, they may have many projects going on. Of course, software projects, IT projects. So that is going on, and once a project is complete, again that workforce or employees which are for that project will be disbanded, and they will again come back and wait for the next project to be allotted. So for that kind of structure, a matrix form is suitable. Again, it's just a guideline. No need that you have to follow it, but it is suitable. Construction companies, for example, the real estate companies, they also have many real estate projects going on simultaneously, right? Some some duplex project at some place, some commercial building at some other place, some other housing project. So it is similar to this kind of situation, which is project-driven enterprises. Right? So for construction companies undertaking turnkey projects, right? So if a company is taking the turnkey projects, then also it is applicable, because at a particular time they may have many such assignments or turnkey projects simultaneously. So it is better to adopt a kind of matrix structure. Okay, so this is the first guideline. Second one, functional form. Functional form where you're dividing your workforce completely based on your labor kind of division of labor specialization. That is functional form. So it's suitable for stable and repetitive environment. So this is the keyword. We are adopting functional form if the organization is dealing with a kind of repetitive tasks, right, over a long period of time. There is hardly any change in the nature of their activities or business. So it's quite stable, right? As I said, most of the bureaucratic offices or organizations or departments, state departments, government, central departments, they follow the functional form. Even many PSUs, right? Many PSUs, which are not project driven. For example, SAIL, BHEL. So they are mostly having a kind of stable and repetitive environment. So for that kind of companies or that kind of projects, so it is functional is suitable. So better to divide your workforce based on your specialization, and that way it works better. Right. So that, for example, suppose you are taking a project involving construction of 5,000 similar houses. So here the similar is the keyword. Similar means a kind of a repetitive task. You have to complete 5,000 similar houses. It is a kind of repetitive task. There is no, it's not a kind of temporary endeavor as compared to project-driven organization. So it will be almost like a regular affair that for a long time you have to repeat the same thing. So better to divide that functionally, right? So in that situation, functional form is suitable. So the main thing is that if it is stable and if it is repetitive, right, then in that case, functional form is suitable. Now the third guideline is regarding departmental project organization. So as you know, departmental project organization is something where the company itself or the organization itself is carrying out some project of their own without any external help, right? It's not that they are calling tenders and they are giving the funds or sponsoring some kind of project to some third party. Then it is different. Departmental project organization means the company itself is doing the project or implementing the project. So it is most suitable for kind of expansion project, modernization projects, balancing projects, etc. Because as you know, while we discuss about the various types of project, at that time we discussed these terms like modernization project. So suppose you know that the kind of machines or equipments or technology you are using in your company or in your industry is getting obsolete, outdated. So you want to replace it with some state-of-art technology, and in that case, you have to go for the modernization project. So it is better to handle yourself because you have all the know-how, all the resources to replace it. So that kind of project can be called as departmental project organization, and is suitable for even expansions. Suppose you want to expand your production capacity or your volumes, so you have to expand your plant or your assembly lines, etc. So in that case, it is departmental project. Okay, so there are some very simple guidelines before deciding the. Okay, in what situation you will go for pure project organization? During the discussion of pure project also, I told you it is mostly suitable for production of movie, election campaigning, or maybe some R&D project, or maybe some software project. So pure project means it is having a single mission, single goal, and all the team will work with the same goal, right? So yes, another important feature of this pure project organization is it is most suitable for labor intensive projects. You can see this line here. So it is suitable for labor intensive projects. So what are the labor intensive projects? Maybe few classes back I told you about this. Labor intensive projects are those projects where your prime resource is manpower, human resource, right? So election campaigning definitely is one of the projects. It's the main resource is manpower, right? Similarly, IT projects, the main resource is your programmers or software engineers. So that is the main resource compared to other resources. Of course, we have some other resource, but it is comparably less compared to. So in case of labor intensive projects, it is better to handle that as a pure project form, right? So that is a thing. So work better, this project organization work better for the control of human resources, right? Hence suitable for labor intensive projects like IT software companies, movie production, election campaign, etc. Okay, so project involving high complexity. It is also similar, same point for previous project organization. So if the project is highly complex and require huge resources, mostly human resources, then also it is suitable for pure project organization, right? Maybe launching of a satellite, right? So that is highly complex and needs a lot of human resource involvement. And particularly the thing is what I understand for pure project organization, that should be a kind of belongingness feeling and kind of fulfilling the mission. You see all these examples. There is an underlying mission is there. For example, movie production, right? So in a big budget movie is being produced, all the people involved in that, starting from the spot boy to the producer director. So they have a very single mission that how to make this movie the best one. So that kind of feeling, that kind of mindset, that is underlying in such situations. Even election campaigning. So all the people who shout for their candidate for the election, they have that mission that how to make him win. Similarly, the other examples like IT and all that. Okay, so these are very, again, I'll say it's not hidden for that you have to follow exactly this, but yes, these are some guidelines which may help to decide that what kind of organizational structure works the best for a particular situation, a particular project. Okay, so now I'll proceed to some other topic that is regarding. It is complete. Okay, I have few slides for some real life project organizations. I don't know whether you are able to see it or not. Let me enlarge it a bit. Okay, so this I got from somewhere, some source, that how the organizational structure of Maruti Suzuki is there. Okay, so I'll just briefly tell you how it works actually. And you can also tell me what kind of structure it is. If you can relate with the structures we have discussed. So start from the top. So board of directors, then managing director. Then there is some staffs which are towards the right of this, right? So like a company secretary and chief legal officer, corporate services and chief risk officer. Then under him, corporate services and chief risk officer, there is corporate planning, corporate communication, then CSR, then ITI projects. CSR, have you heard of this term, CSR, which is very famous and popular? Can anyone tell me what is CSR? Anyone who knows what is CSR? Okay. No idea. You should know this term because this term you are going to face later in your career. That is called corporate social responsibility, right? CSR. CSR is a very essential component of each and every organization in which they try to address some of the social issues and they try to give some services towards the society as an obligation towards the society. And mostly if the company is producing a lot of pollution or using a lot of natural resources, then you will see that their CSR are more active, right? They used to open hospitals, they used to provide roads towards schools to the nearby people and all that. Under the CSR also, they take many other initiatives for the welfare of the people around or the public at large. So that is CSR. So they have some funds for that. Even all these things like giving you internships or maybe free trainings, etc. They also comes under their CSR drive, and they used to show that under CSR we have done so and so things. We have given stipend to students, stipend to the wards of their employees or maybe people living nearby. So that is CSR activity. All right. So you should know this term because this is a very popular term, CSR. Okay, so let us understand about this Maruti Suzuki's organizational structure. So what happens actually, these functions which are given to the right of this, they are just below the managing director and they are just work as a kind of supplement to the decision making of the managing director, and it's not coming under exact functionality. So that's why it is given to the right hand side, because it contains things like company secretary, right, or your legal officer, right, which will give you the inputs regarding the various legal issues of the organization, maybe regarding the land, regarding the human resource, or any other legal issue. There are many such legal issues come up. So they just support the main person, that is the MD, in terms of decision making. Right? That's why they are given to the. It is somewhat called, I mean, registry means uh, kind of what do you call it? Official work or maybe some kind of documentation. It's not a proper function compared to the other functions, as you can see here, like production, engineering, administration, marketing, supply chain. So that's why it is just in most of the cases it is just used to dangle below the managing director towards the right. Most of the cases it happens like that. And now if you are coming down below, you will find the main functions here, right? For a Maruti Suzuki company like Maruti Suzuki, you are having main functions like production, right? Then supply chain, then your engineering. See, engineering in terms of this business, I mean, in corporate sector, engineering always synonym with design and development. Remember, so when you are calling a department or engineering, that means it's dealing with the development, the design part of that. So that is engineering. Then administration. Under the administration, they have divided it, the functions like finance. They don't have a separate finance here. Under administration, they have finance, they have IT, and also the personnel, the HR, the most important thing. Then they have the marketing and sales. Okay, so below each of these main function or managers, which are responsible for production, supply chain, etc., you can find there are more designations. Like in production, you have manufacturing, you have facility planning, you have production services, supplier quality assurance. These are all related with your production, right? Production means in case of Maruti Suzuki, it is assembly of the final vehicle, because Maruti Suzuki considered as an OEM, they will get the components and the engines, etc., and they are going to just assemble the product. So that is the production for them. Maybe some small components they are also producing, but majority of the components are supplied by their vendors or suppliers. So they are just assembling it and getting it the final product. So that is the production. And similarly, supply chain is also very important aspect. So in the old times, if you check the organizational structure, you may not find some function called supply chain, because that was not so relevant at that time. But in present times, the supply chain has become a very important function of the any organization, particularly companies like this. So in recent time there is a issue with these chips that are used for these auto manufacturers after this corona, and what happened, because they could not satisfy the demand because there is short supply of these chips, and you can explore what are the reasons for that. So it is issue with the supply chain. The issue with the supply chain. If all the components, parts which are required for the assembling of the final product is not supplied in the right place, in the right quantity, in the right time, then there will be interruptions in the production. You will not be able to meet the demand which is there in the market, and that will hamper your profit. You are not able to fulfill the demand, so the customers will look other way. So this way, these things are becoming important, and according to that, you are changing your organizational structure. So here there is a supply chain function mainly, and it is component sourcing. Component sourcing means the kind of components I told you. So it is their function to source those components from various suppliers spread across the globe, and in the right time they have to provide it to the supply or to the assembly line. Vendor development is another aspect of that. You have suppliers, so how to collaborate with them, how to deal with them, how to make transactions, how to develop a better, healthy relationship with vendor. There are many strategies which you work in this vendor selection, supplier selection. So it's not that easy to do these things. Okay, so consumables are the inventories or the supplies which are being used by the company, and you have to deal. So that is under supply chain. So these are various functions which are mentioned. Maybe for each of these functions, there may be one or more than one person involved in that particular function. So this way the organization structure works. So to me, it looks mostly kind of functional organization. It looks kind of functional organization because it is clearly divides the functions into various functional heads. Then there is engineering. As I said, engineering stands for design, research and development, quality assurance. Then administration I already discussed. Then marketing, sales. So these are typical organizational structure for a company, Maruti Suzuki. Of course, maybe they might have changed it, because as I said, it is not that it will be a rigid structure. Maybe from time to time they can change it. It is up to them how they want it to run. I have another slide, I think. Yes, this is a organization structure for Tata Motors. Tata Motors, right? Not Tata Group as a whole, because Tata Group as a whole will have different diversified sectors. It is just for Tata Motors. Am I audible to you? Right. So this is just for Tata Motors, and here I can see it starts from board of directors, and again the company also gives a higher priority to the shareholders. So they have just mentioned it to make them happy, I think. So shareholders, then board of directors, then CEO and managing MD. Then comes a post called managing director for India operations. So Tata Motors may have other international operations, like they have the some base in UK. So for India operations, there is a managing director, and under him there is a management committee and operations committee. Okay, so again they are secondary, means they are providing supporting service. But exactly below, you can find some functional heads like head for commercial vehicles, chief financial officer, then head ERC. ERC may be some of the short form they might have using ERC, I don't know. Okay, so again below him, there are other heads are also there, like head for passenger cars, commercial, chief strategic sourcing, head passenger cars operation, head some international business, head again CBBU. Maybe that short form is unique to them. Then head government affairs and collaboration. So all these heads are reporting to the managing director India operations. Just below that, they are at par with all these head commercial vehicle and financial officers. And board, under the board of directors, there is another group of persons, or maybe some various committees are there, who are also reporting to the board of directors in case of some board meetings. So they will get the inputs from audit committee, executive committee of board, remuneration committee, nomination committee, investors grievance committee, ethics and compliance committee, special need based committee. Okay, so as you can see, it is up to the company. They will hardly try to follow what is there in the book or academic knowledge, right? It is up to them. It is, they can design frame their organization structure, which is, see, it is a very unique feature you can see here. These people which are on the right hand side, or maybe they are committees, they are directly reporting to the board of directors. Board of directors means a group of persons, maybe 7-8 persons. They are the board of directors. There will be a chairman of that, and they may have meetings from time to time. And these committees are reporting to the board of directors. So the top management, in fact, the top management is getting the input from all these sources. Suppose there is some malpractice in financial dealings, then the audit committee will catch it, right? So the audit committee will directly report that to the board of directors. It will surpass this managing director and managing CEO, etc. So directly the board of directors will come to know that there is some mishandling of funds or resources from the audit committee. So this way they design as per their. Similarly, other committees you can see. So this way Tata Motors works, right? Okay, so just some examples I tried to show you. If you are interested, you can check the other companies' websites, like you can see how the companies like Reliance, etc. work. Also, you can check, or any other IT company you can check. Okay, this is another example. It is from ITC, right? You know, ITC is a very popular FMCG based company, and it is producing many products which we are all acquainted with, right? So what kind of structure you look in it? Anyone? What kind of organizational structure this IT is showing? Can anyone answer? Very good, very good. It very clearly shows you it is dividing the workforce based on its products. So they have foods, they have cigarette, lifestyle retailing, education, and stationery. Okay, so below that you can see various popular names, right? Yes. So this way means it depends what kind of. Okay, some examples just. Okay, let us proceed. Next is we are trying to discuss something which is there in our syllabus to know or discuss. What are the qualities a project manager should have, right? So, okay, so this is nothing special about it, that what qualities a project manager should have. You can also add few more to this, right? So let me read out these things for you. Then if you have something missing, you can add so that you can discuss, right? So a project manager, now you can imagine yourself as a person who is subjected to this kind of situation where you are giving some crores of rupees and you have a time deadline and you have some scope, you have a project report with you that what exactly you have to produce, that is called the DPR, detailed project report, and everything is ready. Now how you will pull on this project, right? If you imagine it, then maybe you can add few qualities of a good project manager to this list, because this list may not be exhaustive. We cannot say that only this much is enough to be a good quality manager. I cannot claim. But yes, these are some of the qualities, characteristics, or skills one should have. Vision, right? Vision. Vision means, you know, you should have the capability to see the future, right? And again, to see the future, you may not need a good spectacle. You need a kind of your it is a combination of your kind of intuition and your knowledge. I will tell you that how you are able to see the future. Some people are good at it. They can see the future better than you, right? They are farsightedness. They are farsighted. They can see how these things will move on, how these things will turn up. and what kind of risks, what kind of problems may come up in future. Some people are good at it, and maybe one can develop that skill. But yes, vision is required. Any leader, any chief of the organization, whether it is handling a project or not, should have a visionary, should be visionary, right? If he is not able to see the future, then how he can make good moves, good plans? It's not possible. So vision is the first quality. If you have a short-sightedness, then you will face a lot of problems, right? You will find a lot of problems. Why problems? Because you have not planned it. So that will become a problem for you. If you are a visionary, you already have a plan B for that. So you can easily sail through. So that is the meaning of vision here, right? Innovation. Again, you can see what is the meaning of innovation. Innovation means how you are handling the problem from the context of a project manager, how you are innovative to address a problem. See, each and every moment you will be bombarded with many situations. I'm talking about a very complex and large project. Each moment you will be bombarded with many situations, problem situations from your subordinates, right? Many people will report this thing is happening, that thing is happening, how to deal with that. Now it is up to you to make the decision. As I said, it is nothing but a bunch of decisions that you made that defines you. Nothing else. You are not doing any physical work. You are just taking decisions. You are just giving the directives. You are just signing the papers, right? But which papers you are signing, which papers you are not signing, what instruction you are giving, what directives you are giving, that makes what you are. So innovation works here, right? Suppose there is a problem and you are finding some innovative solution to that, which others cannot see. Which others cannot see, because that is your skill. You are innovative. You are innovative. So in the decision making also, one can be innovative, right? The solution may be very close to you, but you are not able to see it. So that way, this is a quality. This is also required to be a good project manager. How innovative we are, right? Direction and leadership, of course, this very basic need. How nicely you are doing the leadership. See, ultimately you have to handle a bunch of people or a workforce, a team of people. Now, as a project manager, how you are handling it, how you are giving the directions, how you are giving the how you are leading them, right? So there are many things. I'm just giving you the bulleted points, but under this each point there can be a whole semester. The people who are studying the organizational behavior or the managerial skills, they study all these things for a whole semester, maybe how to be a good leader. So, but at this time we just have to see, okay, these are the qualities which are required. Direction and leadership, technical expertise and people management skills. Again, this is also very important. When I'm talking about technical expertise, suppose you made someone, again, a very contrasting situation. You made someone who does not know about any software programming, the chief of a project, IT project, let us say, right? Someone who does not know anything about coding and programming has become the project leader or project manager of a big IT project, right? What will happen? He's a very good is having a lot of vision, innovation, people management skill, effective communication, all the skills are there, except technical expertise, let us say. Except technical expert, it does not know ABC of coding. Then there will be some problems. If it does not have any technical expertise, then there are very, it is highly likely that people will take him for a ride. Definitely people will take him for a ride, right? They will become innovative. They will say that this program will take us 1 month to complete, while they can code that in 2 minutes. So of course, it's a contrasting situation I'm giving you, but technical expertise is required. The kind of project you are dealing as a project manager, you must have the basic technical expertise on that, so that it is not only people who will take you for a ride, but you can be innovative, you can give better solutions. Until and unless you know what is the technical aspects of that project, how you can give innovative solutions. One cannot expect from someone who is who doesn't know about the project technical aspect of the project to give technical advice. And as a project manager, it is expected that you have to see, you are the sole authority and you have to give some solutions from time to time. So technical expertise is a must regarding that project. Of course, beyond a limit, you can take the help from consultants if you do not know beyond a limit. But basic things about that project is a must. People management skill, of course, this is important because you are handling with people, right? And it is very difficult to handle people. Very difficult. You can handle 100 machines, robots, but it is difficult to handle 100 people. You know, they're not machines. There are many other things. So people management skill, some people are again good at it. Some people know how to manage people, right? Some people can make people work for the company or the project. How to get the best out of the people, that is a skill. And if you do not have the skill, then maybe there will be a limitation. Of course, communication is required, effective communication, what to speak to whom and what not to speak. Effective communication is required. Trust, respect, credibility should be there in the workforce. Again, it is for the workforce or the people who are working under you as a project manager. They should have trust on you, respect for you, credibility for you, because they know this person is having integrity, is really working for the project and having a, what is that? Respect for that. So trust, respect, credibility are the qualities that you have to, as a project manager, must maintain so that others can look up to you. Cross-functional cooperations. Yes, this is also important. Suppose you are a project manager and you do not have a nice relationship or cross-functional cooperation from other departments, then your project will be hampered. Suppose you need help from other departments from time to time, and you do not have cross-functional cooperation. The chief of let us say finance is not in good terms with you. You are handling a project, and the chief of finance is in not good terms with you, and you had some work now with finance. You need some kind of help from finance, so your project will be hampered. So a cross-functional cooperation have to be developed, or a kind of relationship you have to maintain cross-functionally, so that it is good for the completion of the project. Negotiation and conflict resolution skills. Again, these are human skills that the project manager must develop. Negotiations. You have to bargain. Plainly speaking, you have to bargain. With whom? With many vendors, many suppliers who are dealing with the project. So ultimately, it is commercial and it is business. And anyone who is supplying some materials need to be negotiated, need to be bargained for, I mean, lowest possible price or cost. So that skill, that bargaining skill should be there. Or it is not only bargaining, there are many negotiations that happen in terms of various terms and conditions that has to be set in any kind of contract. Right? Suppose as a project manager, you hired some services for, say, security services, or maybe IT services, or maybe some other consultancy services. So in that dealing, or in that transaction, right? You are getting some service at the cost of paying something. So you have to negotiate. You will just go on agreeing with all the terms and conditions of your suppliers, then it is not in the best interest of the project. So you have to negotiate, and that is a skill. That is a skill. We all have different bargaining skills, isn't it? So whenever you are purchasing something, we are just showing our bargaining skill. Sometimes you ask for a uh, lower cost. Sometimes you do not. Right. So that is the negotiation skill. That maybe at a very small level scale, but the same thing happens in uh, big transactions also. Almost similar. Almost similar. So both parties will try to make their own terms to be met, and slowly each of them will lower a bit from both sides. Then they will agree upon and they will done. So the same thing happens, just like you purchase something and make a bargain. Same thing, negotiation. So negotiation is also a skill which is required by project manager. It is not only in terms of money that negotiation happens. It may happen in terms of some other term for various conditions or various terms and conditions. So negotiation and conflict resolution skill. Okay, this is also required. There will be conflicts. Many conflicts will happen. Maybe among your own workforce, there will be conflicts. There will be conflicts between many maybe groups. There will be groups will form. Again, as I said, is human being, not machines. So when 100 people are working together, it's natural. After some time, you'll find some groups are formed. Maybe some same birds of same feather will flock together. There will be groups. And with time, you will find slowly there are some conflicts that are also happening. Conflicts, regionalism, casteism, or any other based on groups. So there will be conflicts, and you will go to any industry. You go to any industry, you will find there is continuously there is some conflict going on. Sometimes it becomes visible, sometimes it doesn't become visible. Maybe conflict with the management regarding pay, salary. So how nicely you are able to resolve the conflict, that is also a skill. I remember a few years back, a human resource manager, HR manager for Ranchi, I read in the news that time, was working in Gurgaon, Maruti Suzuki, Gurgaon plant, and there was conflict. And you know, those people who are having some issues, they just barged into a room and they killed him. They killed that person who was the HR manager, who belongs to Ranchi. So these things happen. There used to be some conflict, and how nicely you are resolving that is also a skill. So in real life, these things happen, and what do you learn from the book? Maybe it hardly works on the field. Maybe it just maybe assists you, but practically, if I'll say that it is your own character, own beliefs that makes you survive. That makes you survive. Your human skills, what you are as a person, that helps you actually. Bookish knowledge hardly helps, but yes, you should know these are the things, but practically it is something else. This conflict thing I'm telling. So how to be a person who can resolve the conflict? You might have seen there are a person who are good at that. I used to observe maybe some issue in the road, suppose some fighting is going on, there are some person who will just jump in. They will just jump in and they'll try to resolve the issues. They have no role there, but they'll just try to pacify the persons, and they have a good conflict resolution skill, right? So if you do not have that skill, then don't jump into that fight. Otherwise, you may be at the receiving end. So these are the some human skills which are useful for project manager, and these are required qualities to handle a project properly. Right. So, okay, it's time for today. Do you have anything to ask or add? Okay, what other qualities do you remember? Can you add some qualities of project manager apart from this? I would like to hear from you. Am I audible to you? Okay, can you add some qualities apart from this? You can think. I said this list is not exhaustive. You can add few more.
Sir, availability 24/7.
Okay. The project manager should be available 24/7, isn't it? Well, is this a quality or? Yes, of course, punctuality. Yeah, dedication. So when someone is available 24/7, that itself means that he is dedicated, sincere, and punctual to the work. So that's the quality you are referring to, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, that is yes. See, he has to be dedicated, sincere, committed, and punctual. Right? Of course, these are required qualities. Good. Or coach? Okay. You think on this, and you will get few more qualities. So I'm stopping here today. So your offline class plan is there. You let me know. I am ready, and whenever you will all decide or the institute decide, I like to meet you in the classroom.